Peace and blessings to everyone. This is Khalid again with Lessons Learned, my second installment for my YouTube channel, talking about my 25 years in prison, my life sentence, and the things I've experienced and coming up and the things I've seen and experienced in prison, and my ultimate aim to help those out there who may be straying from the right path, straying from civilized living, so to speak. In my intro, I spoke on briefly my upbringing. I spoke on my aims, my purpose for this particular channel. But in this one, I want to go a little more into my first time in. And I can be long-winded, but I don't want to be long-winded in any of these, at least not in the beginning, to be honest with you all. I don't want to bore you all. I don't want to be protracted, but I do want to be thorough. So, after being incarcerated, after having 20 or so police run up in my mother's house, my baby brother's downstairs, and arrest me 5 o'clock in the morning, rightfully so. The ride alone was long. I knew in my heart that I was going away for a long time. And you never know these things when you're committing the crimes. You never know the extent of punishment, the extent of pain, remorse from ourselves and the victims and their family and their kin. So the ride alone was long. It was longer than I'd anticipated. I tried to sleep a few times in the car. The officer continued to try to interrogate me. I didn't say much of anything. I remember going into, initially I was a juvenile. I was 17 years old, so I went into a detention center first. And I stayed there only for a couple of months because they have to certify you if you are a juvenile in order to get sentenced as an adult. They have to certify you, and they did that with no problem. I was certified. I was sent to the jail, Fairfax jail, that is. There, which was my first taste of the jail life. And I didn't have any fears that I can, honestly think about. You hear all the tales of rapes, you hear all the tales of fights and stabbings and all. You hear these things. And I had been in juvenile facility a couple of times. And I was raised by some pretty strong men in my life in a pretty rough environment, DC. So as sad as it is, I was kind of prepared to be able to defend and protect myself if push come to shove. But that wasn't my initial thought when I went in. It was honestly the smell. I went into these holding cells called the DTs, and they're basically large cells, probably about 30 feet by 30 feet. And in there you sit, and everyone is in there. You have guys on the phones talking about going home in 5 hours because they're just being held, waiting for a bondsman. You have guys that are in the drunk tank and they're spitting up beside you. You have guys wrapped up under their clothes. You don't even see their face because it's so cold in these cells. There's food discarded everywhere. There are a couple people whose heads are hung low. There's some guys that know each other. But what I remembered most was the smell. It was dank. It smelled like urine. It was just funky and extremely cold. It was early in the morning. It was the summertime, but, inside the jail, it was AC. Fast forwarding, eventually I was put in the receiving cells, which are cells used to house you until you go through a receiving process. The process is basically to gauge where you're going to go in the jail, whether you're going to go to where those who have serious time or awaiting serious time, juveniles, other nationalities. In this particular jail, they had pods for the Hispanics, though, because of the amount. Not all of them were confined to those areas, but they had pods just for the Hispanic brothers. So after receiving, I was sent to the third floor. Guys facing, fairly serious time. I knew a few people. And like I say, my mind hadn't wrapped around it. I even remember to this day, honestly, the smells. I smell Irish Spring in some of the the pod areas, the smaller pod areas called the receiving cells. Um, that was the soap if you didn't get the state soap, which is soap that they give you. And I remember that smell, Irish Spring. Sometimes I like it even to this day, sometimes I don't. It's nostalgic. Food, basic. They would give you a sandwich. The first thing that I saw the day I got locked up was a sandwich that was called mystery meat. It looked like tuna fish. It was kind of pink. I didn't get that, so I didn't eat it. Though my stomach was growling, I didn't have a taste for food. And I remember having a milk. They did have a few milks. So I had a milk and just waited for lunch. And even then, I didn't take the tray. I just kind of left it on the slot. Like I said, I knew a few of the guys, one or two of them from the street. And you have people that will, try to find out who you are, where you're from, what your case is. I'm pretty closed-lipped. I don't really deal with a whole lot of people, and I've never been the most social person. And again, when you're first day in, you're just thinking about what have I got myself into? That's the biggest thing that I think ran through my mind. What have I got myself into? How serious is this? And it was very serious. I had trial. I had co-defendants, and I'll speak more on those things as time presses on. But I had about 4 co-defendants, one of which I knew fairly well. We went to a couple of go-go's in D.C. and Arlington, so we were pretty familiar with one another. The other guys I didn't know at all. One I had seen a couple of times. He was more familiar with the guy I was cool with at the time. The pods. Young, mixed with old, rowdy, which is, to be expected. Guys are going to prison. Most have numbers from anywhere from 10 to, 50 years. And so their mind is, well, I'm going to work out. And that's what guys did. They did push-ups all day trying to prepare their bodies for what may be down the road, or play cards and talk. And that was our way of alleviating nervousness, our way of quelling fears. That was sit around, talk about the streets, cars, neighborhoods, go-go's, parties, clubs, girls, rarely our cases. Rarely do guys talk about their cases when they first fall, because one, you don't know who is going to actually snitch. You have guys that will listen to your case and go to the magistrate or talk to their lawyers in hope of lessening their time and their charge. So a lot of guys don't talk about their cases, though you're asked. And the newspapers are there. In some cases, make the newspaper. So some guys have actually been known to, and I lie not, cut the articles out of their cases, especially pedophiles, especially rapists, or guys who've hurt, children or hurt older people. They'll cut those cases out and hide them, throw them away, because they don't want people to find out, because there's a harsh treatment for those who commit those sort of crimes in prison. So we sat around for months. We played cards, and we talked. We got familiar with one another, and we went through our trials. And every morning there were trials. They were calling you out the pod 5 o'clock in the morning. They would put you in cells where they would call you. And when they call you for your cases, they would cuff you. They would cuff your wrist and oftentimes cuff your ankles. And so they would make a chain gang. It would be you and up to 20 guys sometimes. And you would scuttle along the hallways, very long hallways in Fairfax jail. And they would deposit us on floors, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, etc. And different cells here, so that you can go to your court case. After you face that, and it was often a process. You didn't just get your time the first day. You had trials, preliminary evidence hearings, and so forth. Often when you come back to the pod, you're drained. You committed a crime, you were wrong more often than not. And so you have to take what comes with it. But your body is drained, your spirit is drained. You look behind you. And I remember looking behind me, because I hadn't told many people about my case. The streets were familiar with it, but I remember not telling my father for a few months. He said to him and my grandfather, we're coming to my trial. which I was hesitant because I didn't want them to hear, the life I was living at the time, some of the things I had done. But they came, and I remember looking back, and the victims, those who were involved in our case, their side was plentiful, 50, 75, 100 people over there. Um, Juveniles, it was high school students supporting their friends, and I respect that. Like I said, I didn't tell anybody, many people about mine, not the adults. They found out through word of mouth, but I was elusive when it came to trial dates. Again, shame, really ashamed of, that and embarrassed. I hadn't grown to really truly repent initially. I didn't grow to truly evolve into understanding the error of my ways. But what I did know was I didn't want my family to look down their nose at me for things I had been doing. So I didn't tell many people when they asked about my cases. I would, be elusive. I don't. It's next week. It's on the 5th. It's on the 9th. I don't know. I'm not. They're going to switch it, trying to throw them off. And I didn't want to be a burden to my family either. Many of those immediate families, my aunts and what have you, uncles and some cousins, they didn't really have transportation out to Fairfax from D.C. except for subways. And early in the morning is when trials often begin. So I looked behind me. I saw my father, my grandfather. And they open in statements are often what is going on. And so as they began to go into an hour worth of what they suspected happened that night, what they know happened that night, and what they hope to find out what happened that night. After an hour or so, we get up for a break. We go back into this little holding cell. And I remember coming back out the holding cell, and I didn't see my father and grandfather. It was too much for them, it was painful that they left, but I also understand it. No one wants to sit there and hear their child shooting, other people's children. And I mean, teenagers. So, I dealt with the trials. I dealt with the cases. My father had always, stood by my side. I hadn't heard from him for about 3 months after that, and it hurt me, but I understood, and I explained to him in the letter that, you showed me right and wrong. I mean, I've heard stories of when my father was in his youth, but I had missed his company, because we were pretty close. So after I wrote him a long letter, after that, he was by my side. He wrote me, sent money when he could, came to visit me often when he could. My grandfather the same way. Extremely disappointed, extremely hurt, but he was also willing to support me financially and things like that. And during my imprisonment, he passed along with many family members. And again, I'll go into that. But I remember that. And so after trial, I was found guilty along with my co-defendants. All of us were given different time. One of my co-defendants was given life in 3 years. One was given, 2 were given 25 years, 24, I believe. And I was given life in 10, first degree murder and abduction. After that, you wait to go down the road. You wait to go to the prison, the correctional facilities. And you can wait anywhere from 5 days to 5 months. And but everyone after their sentence is eager to get down the road and begin their time, because that is how it is. Once you get your time, once you get down the road into the receptional center, your time starts. And so most people, once sentenced, they're eager to get down the road. And so a month or so later, maybe 2, I was called about 5:50 in the morning. Kareem, B&B, which means bag and baggage. So you get your stuff, you pack your bags. Everybody that knows you comes to your cell. They give you handshakes, they give you an embrace, they tell you hold it down. I'll see you when I get down there, man. And those that are going home soon, if you need something, let me know. Numbers and addresses were exchanged. You give away your cosmetics, you give away everything because you really can't take much down there with you. So you give away your t-shirts, your radios, and you give away everything except what's in your property that you got locked up in, and some of the things that you will take with you. You do want to take some cosmetics. You do want to take deodorant and toothpaste. You don't know how fast your money on your books in the jail will follow you to prison. Sometimes it takes a long time. I'm talking about, I've seen guys in the reception for 5 months and the money has not followed them. And so that means that they didn't bring any cosmetics. Then they would, ask their family to send money, and that would go right to the receiving and they could purchase. But if they didn't have that support, they may have to borrow from some guys that they knew or some guys that they had grown cool with. But I had cosmetics. I had everything I needed. I grabbed my mail. I grabbed my cosmetics. I packed my bag. I bagged it. And I went on a bus with several guys and headed from Fairfax to Southampton Reception in Cape Run, Virginia. In my next installation, I'll explain more about the reception and on to the big house. Again, it's long. This is a long and arduous journey. And I want to be, again, transparent and thorough. But I pray that you all follow me. I pray that you listen. I pray that I can be of some service. And again, like, subscribe, share. I want to reach as many people as I can. I want to help as many people as I can. And I want to impress upon as many people as I can that, things aren't always what they appear. And we can do a lot to help one another. With that said, peace and blessings. You all have a good day. You all have a good night. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.